back to another video. Today I'm going to do a report on the Hellenic Mountain Race. Now it's about a week since I finished the race, so I thought I'd give you a bit of a run through and just sort of talk you through what happened in my race and a quick overview of the rest of the race using the race tracker here. And I'll also show you some of the videos and go into a bit more detail of the race here on Rider GPS. Before I go any further, I just thank Peloton who are sponsoring this video. They do sunscreen for cycling. I used it out in Greece. Good product. Didn't get sunburn. So that's what more could you ask from a sunscreen? And they're giving a 20% discount for viewers of this video. So yeah, click on the link on the screen or have a look down below in the description to find the link there and get 20% off your Peloton sunscreen and recovery gel. So to the race, as you can see, headline stats. 500 and essentially 45 miles. It's 90,000 feet, which is 28-ish thousand meters. And yeah, if you look at the profile here, you can see there's pretty much zero flats. In actual fact, I'd say there is no flats whatsoever. There's a few false flats which feel like flat, but it is definitely a very hilly race. So you can see from the route here, starts in Meteor, well technically Kalabaka, which is the town at the base of Meteor. Meteor are these old Greek temples, a bit of a tourist hotspot. Let me see if the Google Man works there. So you can kind of see this massive rock formation, and the little temples based on the top of these rocks. It's a pretty impressive site actually. So this was the start location for the race. It's also been the finish location for a couple of transcontinental races as well. So there's a little bit of history in the town. So yeah, we all started together 9 o'clock on I think it was a Saturday we started. I can't really remember, to be honest, but yeah, so we all started together, and there's quite a bit of single track early on, so I made sure I started quite hard to get into the single track near the front, which I managed to do. I think I was about third into the single track, and as you can see, a bit of single track, bit of road. This was Maroon Golfman here on the right hand side of the video, and passing under these pretty cool rocks. So yeah, these things are always hard to sort of decipher early on when they start. So I'll just run through the dots here, and you can see it's pretty chaotic, quite hard to work out what's going on. But essentially there was a bit of a lead pack. So pre-race favourite Alex McCormack was up there. Anatol Nemi was there. Floris Barat, I think he led for a substantial amount of last year's race. I was up there, and a few others who were kind of maybe overreaching a little bit. You see Marone was there. He eventually ended up scratching. It was interesting to watch this back because you never really sort of have a true understanding of where you are when you're actually in the race itself. But up this first pass, there was a kind of a bit of group that formed. So if we look at Rider GPS, you can see essentially there's this little loop around the start. This was the single track, quite steep, quite slow going. So important to get a good start. And then this long, steady climb. So the first part was tarmac, not too difficult. And then there was kind of like a two-stage climb up to the top here. And essentially, the race kind of started to settle itself out there. You can see from the video here, you can see a few people in the background there. I think Marone was up ahead of me. I can't remember who was there, maybe Floris and someone else. It's always tricky on the first day because some people go too hard and then back off, and other people kind of catch up later on. But it was quite warm, sort of mid-20s, but it was quite humid in Greece. Water was not a problem. So in terms of resupply, there was always a stream or a tap or something, and there was some rain as well, which I'll get onto later. So the first, I guess, big resupply was Metsovo, which is this town here on the map. I'll just zoom out a little bit on the tracker here. And then you can see we start this big northern loop around the Pindus Mountains with CP1 kind of almost at the most northern point. So I'll fast forward a little bit through the resupply and onto that northern loop. So this kind of, the race is sort of getting into its rhythm now. So Alex McCormack, he was first through there. Dimitar Milov, he was actually a pair, I think, with Tristan Ivanov. The trackers, it's very mountainous, very steep wooded mountains here. So GPS has struggled a little bit at times, and so did the trackers. So this isn't 100% accurate. But you can see I caught up with Anatol near me here. He'd had a bit of a rough start, to be honest. I think he basically got heat stroke and was really quite sick. So yeah, he was basically, I caught him at a fountain and he wasn't feeling very good. But then as soon as I caught him, he took off. So you can see Alex McCormack basically took the lead here. I can't remember Miron being up there, but to be honest, this all looks like a slightly different order from what I remembered. I thought there's a few more ahead of me, but maybe I was further up than I expected. But yeah, this is heading into the northern loop, and you can see there's a bit of roads, and then you're into these kind of wooded areas here. Now, a lot of the terrain on Hellenic Mountain Race, it's I guess technically you could call it gravel, but it's rough. It's real rough. This is a kind of example of the tracks. I mean, this is one of the smoother tracks, to be honest, but kind of rough 4x4 tracks. If I'm honest, you wouldn't really want to be riding a gravel bike on it. And there's quite a bit of pretty decent single track as well. So definitely you want to be on a mountain bike for this event. So yeah, I managed to ride through to, where's CP1? CP1's there. So I managed to ride almost to the top of this big climb here on the road. So I ended up camping, so it's Konitsa, but it kind of like drags on all the way up, and I ended up camping somewhere right on the edge of the mountain, of the resort, probably somewhere like this. Look at that. That's exactly the place I stopped. So this is where I camped. It shows you sort of intuition, doesn't it? So I got here probably about 11 o'clock. No, later than that. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. And I camped here in this this shelter. So if we zoom in, I can show you exactly where I slept. So I got there about 11, and I slept just on this bench here behind this table. There was a really useful fountain here. So basically I saw this spot and I thought, well, I've definitely got to sleep here tonight. It was dark when I got there, 2 in the morning. So I took all my clothes off, really sweaty. So I took my jersey off, my shorts off, got on my sleeping bag with no clothes on, just lay on the bench. So I was elevated, as you can see, really well sheltered. It had rained, sort of showered a bit in the day, so I wasn't sure whether it was going to rain overnight. So I slept there for probably about an hour and a half, and then I was able to resupply with water there as well, and then set off in the morning. So you can see from the profile here, so if I figure out where I was, so I was sort of halfway up this climb here. This resort just basically dragged all the way up. It's kind of urban all the way up through this town of Konitsa. So basically I did this road climb, and then there's this quite steep hiker bike road climb, then off-road, and then a steep hiker bike, probably about 3 or 4k up to this steep point at the top, just up here. You can see where the little man is. And there's this refuge place, and then you sort of get onto the ridge line. Now, this was there's always a moment or two in an ultra race where you kind of I don't know, it just takes your breath away. So this was dawn on morning 2, top of the hiker bike, above the clouds. You can see all the mountains around you. Just gives you a bit of a feel of the Pindus. Most of the time you are in the woods in this area, it's quite green. We'll see why in a minute when the rain hits. And then you head down to CP2. So CP2 is basically at the bottom from that ridge, single track all the way down. Now this is the lower section of the single track, a really good mountain bike trail. At the top it's a bit more alpine and open. I didn't film too much because I was just trying to nail it, and there's some pretty steep rooty sections. It was quite wet as well. So yeah, definitely a bit of a slip and slide on the routes, but this was pretty good. A good solid half hour of basically downhill mountain biking, which was it really was awesome. And that basically took you to CP2, which was at Smolikas Refuge, which was down here. Oh no, down in the town itself. So yeah, basically down into this town there was the first checkpoint. Now at this point, Alex was first there, but Anatol kind of recovered overnight. So I'll just fast forward the dots a little bit. You can see this is our big climb we're talking about here. And see Alex is in the lead, if you can see the little dots there. Anatol second. I was third, which I don't really believe. Oh, I stopped. There we go. I didn't realise I was so far up. So I was third in the night. Then Floris Barat, Quentin Lille and Sebastian Trimbon all got ahead of me. Now I saw Sebastian, Quentin and Floris at the checkpoint. So I stopped for an hour and a half, and obviously these guys didn't. So you can see the sort of the way it played out there. Then I left after the other guys. I just wanted to get a meal. I knew that was my chance to get a meal. So I was then joined by Floris, and we were kind of together most of the day, although it was tricky because we couldn't actually see each other. And you can see that no one's really ever that far behind. So Marone's not that far back either. Quentin sort of just around the mountains, sort of like 5k or so if that. Sebastian a bit further up. But we're basically coming around sort of the end of the northern loop here, back towards Metsova, which is down here, which is going to be the resupply for the day. So if we just zoom out a little bit on Riber GPS, you can see there's this kind of big off-road section here, and to be honest, I never really knew where I was at any time. You're in the trees a lot. I mean, Floris was probably within a kilometre of me the whole way through here. I saw him again at Metsova, but I just didn't know. I just didn't know where he was because it's quite wooded. He was always around the next corner, and it was raining then as well. It rained quite heavily, and you can see the kind of tracks you're on, kind of forestry roads. This was early on. It did rain quite heavily for most of the morning, really. And at times it did get a little bit muddy, but there's normally a way you could kind of ride through and pick a good line. But yeah, it was just a case of wrapping up, getting the hood up on the coat, just remembering to keep eating and keep drinking, because that's something you can forget to do when you're in this sort of situation. And then eventually once we got to Metsovo, you can see kind of this sort of area of the mountains just seemed to trap the weather. As soon as we got into the Metsovo Valley where we were before, it did start to clear. I stopped at the same bakery I stopped at on the way through. The cheese pies were excellent, and to be honest, I just wanted some savoury food. I saw Floris briefly, and then Marone came thundering into town just as I was about to leave, so we said hi briefly, and he went into the shop. And then you can see there's this big old climb up here. Now again, I think the three of us were probably very close together. That's Floris, myself and Marone up to this sort of 400k mark. At this point, Alex and Anatole were sort of stretching away. Alex still leading, but Anatole had recovered from his morning kind of issues. And if you zoom in, there'll be Sebastian there, Quentin a bit further up, and then Floris and myself. I'm probably just behind Floris. Just there we go. And Marone was there somewhere as well. Marone's tracker wasn't updating very quickly though, so I think his position is always a little bit out. Again, positioning of the tracker and also the mountains can have an issue or cause issues there. And just to show you what that pass looked like, it's pretty spectacular, to be honest. So this is a sort of riding along. It was quite slow. It dragged on for bloody ages, to be honest. You can see it's quite a rough surface. Just hard to get momentum, and basically we went up this valley, dropped down a little bit, and then kind of cut around the back of the mountain where those clouds are. Pretty spectacular. It reminded me a little bit of Kyrgyzstan and Silk Road race. And then we dropped down, kind of this long descent, and then a bit more of a climb up to CP2, which was here. You can see CP2 is kind of probably 10k up a road climb. So it was a bit of a drag. I got there at 10 o'clock. Marone actually caught me just at the start of the climb. There's quite a bit of single track just down this bottom section here. You can see the zigzags of this section here. So Marone caught me. I overtook Floris, and I think essentially we all ended up, apart from Alex and Anatole, we all ended up in this checkpoint together and stayed overnight, and then I could hear the others leaving at various times through the night. Further down the field, this was then kind of the chase group here, I guess, in that sort of wooded section. Megan Hakkinen here is leading the women's race, and Hannah Simon was second. Can't quite pick her out of the massive dots at the moment, so I shall go back to that later. But after CP2, basically, the weather was pretty good then, to be honest. So I left really early in the morning. CP2 is just here. I have no idea what this mountain looks like because it was pitch black. I just didn't see anything. And then we kind of head down into this kind of big river valley here somewhere. It really was quite spectacular. And then there's a series of climbs. So I'll just show you where they were. So CP2 is there. So then you've got these series of 2 climbs sort of through here. Where are we? it'll be up through here. So there was a bit of a resupply here. And the video I'm about to show you is basically from this climb here, looking back down this big wide river valley. And it just gives you a sort of a sense of scale and you know, what it looks like. So yeah, basically came down these mountains on the right hand side, looped on the river a bit, and then climbed back up again. And that's pretty much how the rest of the day went. Basically up and down and up and down. The next climb, again, you can see very sort of familiar. It reminded me a little bit of Tour Divide. Some of those climbs in Montana, in the trees, see the mountains in the background, and it was getting really hot at this point. And yeah, just tough going. So let me play the marks again. So that's CP2. Alex and Anatol left. The rest of us stayed there. And at this point, they're pretty much essentially neck and neck when you factor in the kind of the tracker. So Alex took a stop there. It looks like Anatol didn't, but Alex was obviously riding much faster. So yeah, the two of them were well away, and then there's this chase group with myself behind, and then the others kind of basically spread around the rest of Greece. So back to the route. Once you got sort of through those longer climbs, there's a bit of a brutal hiker bike. You always have to worry when you see one of these bridges on the Hellenic Mountain Race, because basically it means you're going up a ridiculous climb, and it's probably going to be a hiker bike. So that must have been, where was that? Must have been this one here somewhere, I think. Probably this one here. Must have been down here. There we go. There's a warning. Hiker bike up to the main road. So this is where the hiker bike was. And as you can see, almost at CP3. But there's the small matter of this massive mountain in the middle. Now I didn't really see this; it was dark, so I'll have a look on the Google Man and see what it actually looked like. That was quite nice actually. So yeah, I could basically just see the tarmac ahead of me. So essentially, I slept in this little town at the bottom, or just before the town, probably on this bend here. I would have thought there was basically a little. That's a bit further up. There was basically a small little kind of shrine at the side of the road, which was like a bus stop, which I stayed in. I can't find it, so I won't look too deeply. But yeah, so basically I slept there. And at this point, into CP3, if we head back to the map, so CP3 is just through here. So Alex and Anatol kind of ahead of affairs again. Alex got there first, but the two of them were within a few minutes. Not sure if they stopped there or not, but basically here either people pushed through to the checkpoint or they stopped. So obviously, as I said already, I stopped at the bottom here. Quentin, I think he was further up. Floris, these guys I think were ahead of me. You can see the trackers are all over the place. So this is probably a more accurate representation of what was going on. I caught Quentin at the checkpoint. He left just before me. I passed Morone on the climb, and Floris sort of dropped in and out. I'm not sure if he stopped there or not. And Sebastian went through as well. Now this was a key point of the race. So if we look at the timings, this was basically, I got there at I think it must have been 4 a.m. This was basically the last real town. I'll put on Rival GPS, it's easier to see. This town here was essentially the last real town between there and the finish. Carpenisi, I think it's called. So essentially, if I didn't resupply there, then I'd get nothing for the rest of the race. But I figured this out earlier in the race, and I think I stopped probably at this petrol station and shop. So that was my last resupply. So at mile 382. So I rode the rest of the race basically with what I had in my bag. So that final morning, I was really, to be honest, I was really struggling quite a bit. Just I had enough energy to get to the checkpoint, but then after that at dawn, this long kind of off-road section, I just couldn't get going. Just didn't have the energy. And then there's this pretty spectacular mountain pass up here. It's actually one of the coolest passes I think I've ever done. Definitely had massive vibes of Kyrgyzstan and the Silk Road Mountain Race. So I've got a little video of that, and that was at this point that I caught, I didn't catch. Marone got ahead of me. No, Marone caught me in the morning. I basically stopped for a 10-minute nap. That's the pass. I got to the top of this climb, and basically Marone was stood there at the side of the track with his shorts off, airing himself out. I wondered what was going on, and basically he'd managed to pull the insert, the pedal insert, out of his carbon crank. So basically he basically scratched there on top of that mountain and extracted himself. I don't know how he got home, to be honest. It's so remote there. There's basically nothing there apart from tiny villages, but he managed to get out somehow. So that put me probably in about 5th or 6th place at the moment. Quentin and Sebastian and Floris were ahead of me. But remember I said about the resupply? Basically Sebastian didn't really manage to get enough food. So I think he basically ended up scratching around here somewhere. So I think this is one of his first ultras. And yeah, you can see Floris is really closing in on him there. I'm probably there somewhere as well. There's me. Marone had scratched by this point. Quentin was still in the race, but Sebastian scratched around here somewhere. And Floris was going ahead there. So yeah, it was a bit of it can all change very quickly. So that's the descent there. So you can see probably Marone's stuck on the top there. Oh, that's me and Marone hanging out and just chatting for 10 minutes. 10 minutes, which I massively regretted later at the end because I was only essentially 30 minutes off the podium by the finish of the race. So Sebastian scratched in here somewhere. Further up ahead, basically Alex is almost on the final climb. He really pushed out the gap, and he put a good, what's that? That's probably 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 10k into Anatole there. Bearing in mind this is a big climb, so Anatole would have just had a bit of downhill on his side, so the gap was effectively a bit bigger, and then a big pushback, so 750k, not quite 100k, probably 90k between sort of the basically the race for the podium. So those two big climbs. After that mountain, the big mountain here, there was basically a road climb, some 5k climbs, and then two big final climbs. You can see on the profile here. 10-mile climbs, and this sort of false flat annoying bit in the middle. This one here, again, it just reminded me of Tour Divide. It's just a long climb. You can see where you're coming from, all the way in the background there, all the way up these mountains. You felt like you've been going in circles all day. There's a bit of a loop there, and this is, again, it's got Tour Divide written all over it. So yeah, that was what you're looking at. So you can see this loop here. It's quite kind of confusing because you feel like you're going down one side of the mountain and you can see the same mountains all day. So you just don't know where you are really, hence sort of being a bit confused by my location on the map at times. So yeah, we had two long climbs basically, that one. And then the final climb, which it was dark by the time I got there. So basically I'll just finish off by running the tracker. So you can see Alex took the win, and Anatole, he came in second, about an hour behind. And then further back, I've not actually watched this, but Quentin, he was still in third, but he just basically, his body shut down and he stopped at the top of the final climb. He was in a bit of a state. And then myself and Floris, I was about 5k behind Floris. We came in just behind in third and fourth. Quentin came in, he ended up scratching. And Sebastian had scratched as well. Further back, this chase group, so Rory Anderson is in there. He came in fifth in the end. And then Megan Hakkinen charging through the field here. She was pretty dominant in the women's race. She won the women's race. And you can see I think she was like 9th overall or something like that. So a solid top 10 from Megan. And then further back, there was a nice little scrap for the podium in the women's race. So Hannah Simon and Carlotta Schumacher. It's really difficult to see on this tracker, but they were in a bit of a tight race. They came second and third in the women's race. So that's a bit of a roundup. Hopefully that was interesting and useful and didn't go on too long. But yeah, that was my take on the Hellenic Mountain Race. I did really enjoy the event. It was really tough. I was definitely having 2-hour daytime naps for a good solid week after. It did do a bit of a number on my body. But yeah, feeling good now, about a week after. So looking forward to the Silk Road Mountain Race, which is the third race in the mountain race series in Kyrgyzstan in August. thanks for watching. I've got a gear check and a bike check video coming out in a few days' time. So get subscribing if you don't want to miss that, and see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.